Once again, a Cardinals victory. We appreciate you joining us here on the Sports Hub SCL postgame show. I'm Sara Dayley alongside Brenden, Schaeffer, and the Cardinals taking another victory. Man, they've been on fire, winning 15 plus out of the last 20 games and taking one from the Orioles tonight. I will admit it's a little nice to see Holiday being successful as a young gun coming up, and his brother's supposed to be the next one on tap that's supposed to be bigger and better, but the Birds just really shut it down tonight, 6-4. Cardinals starting pitching is a topic to talk about. It's finally starting to fall in place. It's been discussed. It was one of the woes at the beginning of the season, really just picked apart. You couldn't pick it apart anymore as far as falling apart and the bullpen coming together, and now here we are, the Birds 32-24 heading into the next game.
Yeah, how about that? 8 games above 500 and really coming back from behind to take this series win after really not looking their best, I thought, on Memorial Day in game 1 of this series in Baltimore. So to have that result and then to win the last 2 games and to win them the way that the Cardinals have, really without maybe their best versions of Miles Mikolas and Andre Palante, kind of giving up some runs, both guys allowing 4 runs. But the offense then saying, yeah, we don't have any quit in us. We're going to continue to battle through the middle innings. And I've been really impressed with the way the Cardinals offensively have been able to, at the tail end of the starts for the opposition, they're continuing to whittle away and wait for their opportunity. Cade Povich tonight started really strong. He struck out a bunch of Cardinals, but by the end of it, the Cardinals were chasing him from this game, putting up damage against him, and that was able to put them over the top, along with what was a really good bullpen outing. As Allison mentions, Mikolas goes just 4 innings in this game, but the Cardinals bullpen comes through with 5 scoreless innings. They weren't all simple. Leahy had a little bit of traffic against him, as did Ryan Helsley, but at the end of it, the Cardinals are able to escape with a series win, and that's really the name of the game, Sarah.
So we've talked about the pitching and arms as a whole collectively needing a starting rotation to go deep. The bullpen did come through tonight. It happened to work out on the good side for us, for the Cardinals. But there have been points where we've needed a mid-reliever. We needed someone to go a little bit deeper in the game, starters to go deeper, and really just give the bullpen a break. So what is your position now moving forward? Like, do we have to continue to have 6, 7, 8+ innings out of the starter? Or where are we at with the bullpen and the starting rotation? Because it's been a conversation since day one.
Sure. I think the best version of a pitching staff is going to include seeing the starters get deep into games. And by deep, I think that qualifies as 6 innings or more. And you'll have games where you're able to get even more than that out of some select guys in your rotation. Mikolas is typically not one of those guys. If you get 6 from him, you're feeling pretty good about it. Ollie Marmol has been rather aggressive when it comes to taking him out before the blow-up inning comes. But tonight, Miles had to kind of grit through a couple of innings after giving up some early runs. And so ultimately, they were a little bit on the short side with him even still, and that he only threw 72 pitches in this game. But the Cardinals were battling back, and Oliver Marmol sensed that, hey, there's an off day coming tomorrow. I've got a bullpen that's relatively rested. I'm going to be willing to use these guys and say, hey, you can relax tomorrow. But if you're available tonight, I'm going to go to you because this game is potentially in the balance. So I thought this was an isolated example, Sarah, where the aggression really did pay off in Oliver Marmol in the Cardinals' favor. It may not be suitable to do this every single time, but with the off day tomorrow, I thought this was an opportunity to do exactly what the Cardinals did and throw Leahy out there for the 5th and continue through the main names in your bullpen after the Cardinals regained the lead. I thought it went pretty smooth from that standpoint.
So we've kind of nicknamed, I mean, they've been called the Cardinal comeback kids for a couple of times, maybe a couple of seasons ago and things like that. But that's kind of what they're regaining because they have had so many games this season where they're within 1 or 2 runs, 3 or 4 runs. They're down 5. They come back, extra innings, maybe lose by 1 or 2. They're coming back to fight because they're mentally and emotionally, I feel like they're somewhat resilient. I mean, it might not result in the win that we want, but they're fighting. They're consistently fighting. And I think that should be somewhat of a theme for this season and this club. They consistently fight no matter if they're down or up. And that continues to show that it's going to be on the progressive side as you keep moving forward through the season, no matter who's in the rotation.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. And really the fight that they have shown has come kind of in those ways where you might not get to a starting pitcher early in the first few innings, but they end up coming through as that starter on the other side wears down. And of course, the Cards Up postgame show is presented by Hot Shots, and all content here on Sports Hub STL, brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Want to mention that Walker spot that Justin brought up here in our comments section. The Walker hit was huge. It was nice seeing him come around a little bit lately. Hopefully he can keep it going and maybe even pick it up a bit from where he's been. The numbers have very much turned around for Jordan Walker recently, but I thought the key spot in the game was when the Cardinals do get the bases loaded there in the fourth. You cannot come away empty. That was a first and third situation with nobody out, and you had the heart of your order coming up essentially, and they were very, very close to not being able to cash any of that in. For Jordan Walker to have the base hit that scores a couple of runs, that gives everybody the belief that, hey, we can do this again. We're the Cardinals. The comeback kids is what we have done all year long. And so for the Cardinals in that spot to at least get something out of that situation, I think added to the belief. And it didn't take much longer after that the Cardinals were able to pile on again in the fifth inning. So I thought that Walker swing, he's a guy that if you just look at the overall numbers, you're disappointed so far this year. But, man, he's starting to turn a corner. And I thought maybe the Cardinals don't win this game in this series without that key swing from him there in the fourth inning.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because you've seen all the players that have maybe started out a little slower make that turn, right? And we're approaching June, now July, which July is All-Star break. And then before you know it, we're going to be on the downhill slide of the season. So Walker making that hit and starting to maybe turn around just a little bit for himself is a good thing. You also see Sam Thomas and a couple other folks. Sam Thomas talked about we were an improved team, or if we weren't an improved team, forgive me, we would have lost 4-2. We're much more improved. And I agree. Like I just said, like the comeback kids, you're starting to see the comeback on the other side. They have fought so hard for so many games and just lost by the hair of their chins that now things are starting to be on the other side. And it's good to be on the other side. So it's good to see some of these players that we always had confidence in and knew they could perform and capitalize. And they always say successful, like key player is going to come through in key situations. And all these guys are really starting to step up, and it's making a difference in the club as a whole and clearly in the organization and the performance on the field.
Yeah, and I think it's notable to mention as well that it's not necessarily every at-bat from every player. Like, nobody on this team is going to hit 1,000 at the end of the season. You're going to have moments like Jordan Walker did tonight, for example. He ended up striking out 3 times in this game. The Cardinals collectively struck out 16 times, Sarah, but they came up with enough of those clutch moments and those key swings to be able to get to a requisite number. 6, I think, is a pretty serious number. And they go 4 for 11 in the game with runners in scoring position. Now, they still left a whole bunch of guys on base, a busload. The 10 players ended up left on base. They had a couple of situations where they didn't cash maybe quite to the extent with the bases loaded that you would like to see. But they're doing enough, and they're putting themselves constantly in those positions to where if you're with a risk at bat 11 times and coming through 4 of those times, that's a good batting average. That's a good requisite number to be able to produce the types of crooked numbers ultimately that the Cardinals are looking for. And so it's going to be somebody different every night. It's going to be maybe not every single at bat, but man, when they have been needed, they have come through in those clutch spots. And you really need to look no further than the way the top of the order carried tonight. I mean, they had 12 hits as a team, reached base via walk 5 times. All the walks kind of came from the bottom of the order, sort of setting the table a little bit. But Newtbar, 2 for 5. Donovan was 3 for 5. And Masyn Winn with a 4 for 5 game. You look up all of a sudden, and he is 795 on the OPS. We had a commenter mention that he's near 800 in that regard. And you get a little bit of power involved. They're not doing it with a ton of homers, but Brenden Donovan hits his 4th of the year. That is a very good recipe for a lineup that seems to be seeing the ball well right now, really no matter who's on the mound.
You're 100% right. So that's a good thing. But the Cardinals off tomorrow, which, like you mentioned, the bullpen deserves a day's rest. So do some of the pitchers and the Cardinals collectively. And then they go on to face Texas, down in Texas, and they'll be in a dome. So a bit of a different atmosphere. But Sports Hub STL post-game shows are brought to you by Hot Shots, who invite you to come out to their St. Charles location on Sunday, June 1st to celebrate their 35th anniversary. The fun starts at noon with a parking lot featuring the Budweiser Clydesdales. There'll be prizes given away all day. There's also a dart tournament at noon and a bags tournament at 2, plus a chance to win Hot Shots tacos for a complete year. That's 365 days. Congratulations to Hot Shots on 35 years. Hot Shots, St. Louis is home for all games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshots.com. Nets. So that is right around the corner. We're talking about June, July, the second half of the season. I feel like the first half of the season was such a slow go for all Cardinals fans because things were not going in the direction that we wanted. But Arenado's impact, he had a clutch home run in the 8th inning of the second game of this series that was pivotal. His leadership, his offensive contributions, the controversial play where he slightly maybe injured, tweaked, whatever, his back. And then we're talking about just a lot of things that players really starting to step up for being the face of St. Louis Cardinals and what they really need to do as a team.
Yeah, I think you can look at a lot of different faces on this team, and again, Masyn Winn going 4 for 5 tonight, scoring 3 runs and driving in another. A key aspect of that, Brenden Donovan has been so consistent in the middle of this lineup all season long. And look, it had been a little bit of a slow stretch for Lars Nootbaar. That's what's so interesting. Like prior to yesterday, Lars Nootbaar was mired in the midst of a 1 for 19, and suddenly he goes and gets on base 3 or 4 times yesterday, hits a home run. He's 2 for 5 tonight. And next thing you know, it's like you never really even noticed that Lars Nootbaar was struggling to that extent because other guys in the lineup were picking him up. You're still going to have guys like, for instance, Pedro Pages and Victor Scott tonight combined for an 0 for 7, and certainly the strikeouts were piling up as a team. But there will be a game here before too long where I reckon one of those guys will have the clutch hit. I mean, Pages in game 1 of this series was really the only offense that the Cardinals were able to muster, and so you're getting a really nice blend 1 through 9 right now. And that's really a good recipe if you're looking to be a team that can be, I've seen the word relentless in these series and continuing to stack up the wins the way that the Cardinals have. Justin in the comments mentioning, hey, this is the Orioles, but a series win is a series win. And I think in particular, the idea that they get one after losing game 1 and do so on the road, that shows a resilience that I think has been a hallmark of the Cardinals this season.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we're talking about a lot of the comments and subscribers. So, by the way, if you do enjoy participating in our shows, please like, subscribe, comment, participate. We want to hear your feedback. But yes, it's finally a good thing to hear some feedback and maybe constructive criticism now that we're on the other side of the losing, era of this season. I hope it doesn't continue to go in a negative direction, but right now it's going really well. So what's your opinion on Texas? Because they're only 27-29. They're not absolutely falling apart. They're going to be a decent club to play for a couple of games. And we're also going to be in a dome. We're not going to be in rain and a bunch of weather that we saw against this whole thing with Baltimore. So how do you predict the club moving forward here in the next couple of series?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you'll get the opportunity to not have to worry about weather, at least for a short period of time, because that has been seemingly looming over the shoulder of the Cardinals throughout a lot of their recent games. Just haven't been able to find the dry necessarily. But Texas is interesting. I mean, they're a team that has, when healthy, a really good pitching staff, and I think they've got a lot of those guys ready to roll right now. They've certainly got some guys in the lineup that can beat you. Wyatt Langford, one of the exciting young players in the game. Adolis Garcia, Cardinals fans, of course, remember, but I don't know that 1 through 9, they're necessarily as robust as they've been at times in recent seasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Cardinals are going to match up with him. But really, I think the Cardinals have done a nice job of matching up with just about everybody. And it is because of that relentless nature, really, of the way that their offense has produced. And they've got young guys that are ready to win. And I think that's a big hallmark of the season at this point as well. We talked about it coming in that this was going to be sort of a year for runway for young players. And, if wins didn't pile up, that was just going to be part of the deal in 2025. But I think we've seen, now that we're about a third of the way through the season, there's a lot to like about the young players that the Cardinals are bringing along. A number of them, even if not all of them, are performing above expectation, and that is bringing the Cardinals to a place where they can reasonably expect to contend. So, yeah, I think you're going in almost regardless of opponent, Sarah, looking to win every single series that you play in, and you won't always accomplish that, but the Cardinals have been pretty darn close recently over the past month plus, losing only to the Detroit Tigers in a series that they narrowly lost. They could have ended up on the right side of that one too. So the Cardinals are in a really good spot right now. I really don't expect anything different going into Texas. It's just going to be nice to not have to worry about a potential rain delay this time around.
Right. There's something to be said for a dome of protective performance for sure. But we do have a couple of comments. John S. says that Victor Scott seems tired. Not sure how he just went off my screen. I'm sorry. Just mentioned how he's not going to hold up the entire season starting. So, a lot of times around the All-Star break, if you do start, we're looking at these guys playing 150 plus games. You're looking at a little bit of a wear and tear, and you're looking at needed some time off. But when you have a situation like the Cardinals organization at the beginning where you're really trying to piece together everything. Everybody's not getting a collective brief moment off, right? Like you're trying to like plug and play, I guess is a good word to say. So now we're plug and playing and people are finally getting there. But I don't think that tiredness or like exhaustion really at this point is really a good word to describe the Cardinals, because I feel like these guys are definitely built to last a little bit longer than halfway through the season, and for sure a whole season. I mean, unless there's an injury and they're really wearing back. But I mean, I don't think tired is a good word, maybe.
No, and I wouldn't say necessarily either that Victor Scott seems tired to my eyes. I think tonight it was not a great matchup for him. He has not been as adept against left-handed starting pitching, and this was a guy who really had his strikeout stuff working. And so, a little bit of a matchup problem, but I think they're okay with that. The Cardinals understand that it's not just going to come from one specific guy in the lineup every night to be able to get things done offensively. And so Oliver Marmol has had a willingness to carry defensive players in the lineup. Pages is an example of that, and I think Victor Scott is a really good example of that as well. And I've always kind of thought of Victor Scott maybe being 1 year behind in the career progression timeline of where we see Masyn Winn, where Masyn Winn came up for a cup of coffee a couple of years ago, and he was kind of overmatched in his first opportunities, similar to what we saw from Victor last season when he got his first chances in St. Louis. But then he makes a big leap in year two. I think we're seeing that leap in year two, but there was a factor of Masyn Winn maybe last year's sort of getting the first taste of a full big league season and the rigors of that, and sort of having to make those adjustments that clearly I think here now in his third season, where really it's just been 2 full years, Masyn Winn, we're definitely seeing the growth there. That's going to come with time with Victor Scott, and I think he's in a great position because what he has turned himself into is an elite defender who I think already is Gold Glove caliber at the big league level, and he has shown the flashes offensively where you can carry this guy. You can have him in your lineup, and more often than not, he's going to find a way to be a plus for you rather than a minus in your lineup. I'm not going to be ripping on Victor Scott from one bad night tonight. If he can end up with the OPS around 690, 700 where it is right now, got to remember, this guy's batting 9th in your order. So you can more than live with that given the defense that he provides. And I think as we talk 2-3 years down the road, Victor Scott is going to continue to develop into an even better hitter than what we have seen so far from him this year. And I think the Cardinals are certainly satisfied with where he has been at the plate.
No, I agree 100%. So baseball season is officially halfway through. Maybe in July it'll be considered halfway through, but it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at the big win. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just $5 entry.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So, Brenden, I have to ask, do you consider, like we have in some of the comments, the season thus far a success? Do you really think that the Cardinals are a success story, or do you think they're just starting to fill the shoes that they have, the talent that they've been recognized to have?
Well, I think it's certainly been a successful go so far this season. I mean, they're 8 games above 500. They're on a pace to win a good deal above 90 games if they were to continue on the pace that they're on. I don't know as of the moment whether they're in playoff position or not. I haven't really been bothering to check the minutia of the wild card standings, and I also haven't been really checking the division standings all that much. The comment here from Ozzy: the Cubs calendar is one that a high school team could have a winning record with. I have
good
told
name,
people,
Ozzy McGuire. I like it.
It is good. I like it. I've told people going back to around May the 12th, I want to say, is when the Cubs started this stretch, where from that point until the 6th of June, they're not playing a team with a winning record on the north side of Chicago. They'll play the Tigers on June 6th, but for that stretch, which is nearly a month, they're playing bottom feeders. And everybody, well, they're sweeping the Rockies. Yeah, a lot of teams are going to sweep the Rockies this year. The Cubs have also enjoyed playing the White Sox in this stretch. They're playing
the Stros. There's a couple people that...
There's some bad Marlins a couple of times. And so I said the Cubs are going to rattle off about 18 out of 25. And I think they're on a pace to do maybe that or a little bit more. So don't bother checking the standings right now. Check your Cardinals and what they're doing series to series. And right now you can continue to be enthused by that, regardless of what the standings might say. So I would say undoubtedly it has been a success, especially when, whether fair or unfair, the Cardinals did sort of lower the bar a little bit in terms of the expectations coming in by the fact that they didn't really add anybody from the outside before the year. This was something we knew was kind of going to be the case going back to last October. And they talked about the new regime that was kind of going to be making its way in. It's a transition year. But we're finding that the young players on the Cardinals more often than not are contributing, and there are veterans that still have something to say as well about the success that this team could bring. And so with all of that being considered, yeah, this has been a really successful start to the season. But I think if you asked the Cardinals that same question and players in that clubhouse and Oliver Marmol, they would tell you job's not done. They probably expected this all along. I can think back to January with guys like Brenden Donovan saying at winter warmup, yeah, we think we're going to shock some people this year. People don't really know and expect what we're going to be capable of doing. We're seeing the actions match the talk that the Cardinals had dating back to January. We heard it in February. This has been a mantra that, not talking about the higher level, not talking about ownership, not talking about front office and the way that they might have viewed things, and understanding that they had to caution fans a little bit on what this year could be. The folks in that clubhouse have been pretty steadfast. Like, we think we're a pretty darn good team and we're prepared to show it. And right now we are seeing that on a nightly basis.
Do you think what's Ollie's position right now as far as Cardinal fans are thinking about the consideration of the manager? At first, it was like fire him, get rid of him, move on, change things. But now all of a sudden, there's some people that are showing some positive signs and really supporting him again. And you know what? I've been a fan from the beginning. I think he's a player's manager, which is good. He really connects with the players. And I think it was just a matter of getting, like I said, all the puzzle pieces together and getting a plug and play where they needed to be. As you can see, Sam Thomas talks about Ollie saving his job for another year with the team's performance this year. I think really he had the potential the whole time. It just was a matter of what it was going to like play into the game, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot that I think goes into this conversation where, like, my thoughts have been consistent, even during the losing, which was hard to do. Because Cardinals fans had a lot of thoughts, and they always do, and we like that. Keep the comments coming tonight, of course, in the comments section. People, they hyperanalyze the manager position in St. Louis, and for a while, that doesn't look good when you go 2 straight seasons and you're not winning, and especially the disaster that 2023 was. But I'm not sure that anybody could have been sitting in that manager's chair in 23 and gotten much more out of the team than Oliver Marmol. And certainly last year when the Cardinals win 83 games, that was a team that underperformed offensively. They were 22nd in runs scored across baseball. ERA, they were in the bottom 10 across baseball. Bullpen, they had a strength at the back end of their bullpen, and Oliver Marmol was able to utilize that, press the right buttons, and win a lot of those one-run games. So now we're seeing, I think, a roster that makes more sense than it has at any point since 2022, when obviously the sense that roster made was, hell, you have Albert Pujols on the team. That's pretty nice, playing it like he's in his prime for the second half of that season. But, I mean, you think back to the bench last year, there was just not a lot of utility for Oliver Marmol. Now it's a situation where, you know, Cardinals fans are kind of saying, well, they're not even using the bench as much as they could. But I think that's an indicator that the Cardinals have like 11 guys on a daily basis that they believe are worthy of playing time and opportunity. And they're largely going to stick with who brung them. Like, they're not often going to pinch hit for Pedro Pages because he's their starting catcher and he's their finishing catcher. He's the guy that they want at the end of a game, catching Ryan Helsley when they're up by 2 runs. Ollie Marmol will be damned if there's going to be a scenario where somebody else is behind the plate and something happens that's they don't have their number one guy out there. And we can decide as outsiders and media and as Cardinals fans whether or not they're doing the right thing there. But the Cardinals have told you how they feel about players like Pedro Pages. They've told you how they feel about players on this roster that are getting the run and the opportunity. So to Nick's question here, seems like Cardinals fans are supporting Ollie now. Are fans okay if Pujols and Yachty managed elsewhere? What say me? If I had my druthers, Ollie Marmol would be the manager of this team for, you know, as long as he wants to be. I believe that he is the right man for the job. I believe it look a lot better right now with the players performing. You give me a roster of players that are performing to their expectations, and I'll show you a manager that can put them in the right positions to succeed. I believe Oliver Marmol has the capabilities to do that, and we're watching it play out.
you can't rotate managers to the point that your club doesn't have a solid leader, right? Like if you keep rotating managers and you keep going through it, they're not going to have that foundation to where the players believe in the club. They're not going to believe in that relationship. And I know there's a lot of doubters with the Mike Matheny era and such, but like you really have to have a players manager in place. Whitey Herzog, everyone always said he was a players manager. Well, that's why, because the guys could go to him undoubtedly with questions, concerns, whatever. And so if you don't have that person in place, I feel like there's somewhat of a disconnect with everything that's in the clubhouse. And so it's good to see that this is happening because I feel like that he is in that place for the Cardinals. And yeah, they started out weaker, but they are progressing and it's going to be a good thing. So we're starting to see the Cardinals as we thought they should be. They're young, they're talented, they're moldable, they're coachable. And that is a good thing. We're starting to see what really needs to come out of the Cardinals here at this point. Of course, Adam Welly is saying, let's go. I know, super exciting. It's fun to watch our product on the field. People starting to attend games. It's summertime, school's out. A lot of baseball kids wanting to go. The young guys coming through so clutch. Drew House mentioning that Ollie can relate to the young guys in a huge way. And that's nails. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you can relate. And that's what I think Mike Matheny brought to the clubhouse, right? Like Whitey was a different era, but Mike brought that relation. He just came off the field as a player and brought it to the clubhouse. And they weren't as successful as they had hoped, but he brought the best to the clubhouse there. And I think that's what Ollie's doing. So I think the Cardinals are really in a good position.
Yeah, I think Ollie does a great job, not just relating to young players, but relating to everybody in that clubhouse. You've got veteran players who have star caliber names attached, like Nolan Arenado. This has been a situation where the Cardinals tried to trade him in the offseason. It was very public, and we have seen Nolan Arenado reacclimate to the Cardinals going back to spring, and that aspect of things has not really been a storyline. Now, a lot of the credit can go to Nolan for that, but Oliver Marmol is managing the diverse group of players that are in his clubhouse, and he's got to have a different relationship with every player. And look, not every player is probably going to be thrilled with their role on a given day. I think especially that's true in a year like this where, coming in, we talked about certain guys that were going to get runway, and they haven't necessarily all been everyday players. That's been a product of Arenado not being traded, a product of other guys knocking on the door for opportunity, right? Victor Scott came with a mission in mind in spring training to take somebody's job, and now he's an everyday player, and so that means less opportunity for somebody else that you might have been able to count on. The same has been true about the way that Ivan Herrera has come through offensively as a bat. So you can think about the challenges of managing this group where, like I said, I would count probably up to 11 or so guys that the Cardinals want to see in the lineup every single day. The guys currently on this roster from a position player standpoint that don't qualify for that, it's no offense to these players, but Pozo and Barrero, those guys aren't necessarily in that line. They're there for a very niche role off the bench, and they'll come through and come up when their name is called. But generally, it's the other 11 that Ollie is going to continue to roll with and try to mix and match and give those guys the best chances to win as they possibly can. But that's been kind of the name of the game for the Cardinals this season. And hey, so far it has been difficult to argue with that it's working as well as it's been.
Couldn't agree more with you on that conversation there. Well, that's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Sara Dayley. Do you have any last thoughts here for the Sports Cards Hub STL post-game show? Because we're going to wrap it up if not. And of course, tomorrow things get kicked off with Randy Carricker at 10 a.m. and Brooke will return soon. And congratulations on her little baby, a new bundle of joy. But right now he's got some sub fill in. So Brenden, do you have anything else left for the show?
Yeah, just looking forward to, I think, the weekend series as the Cardinals are going to be there in Texas taking on a Rangers team. It's always interesting with interleague play to get a look at some different players, some old faces that the Cardinals will have familiarity with, like I mentioned with Adolis Garcia. But I think they're in a great spot right now, and the off day will be well earned. It was very clear that the Cardinals wanted to get this game in tonight, even though there was some weather going on in Baltimore. It pretty much rained all series, but they wanted to preserve that off day, and they were successfully able to do it. Not only that, but they did it in a winning way. You can't really ask for much more than that. The Cardinals are rolling right now, and we'll see how long they can keep this up. But the vibes are definitely strong as we move into the off day Thursday.
So once again, the Cardinals take another one tonight. A good victory for the Birds, and they'll have a day off tomorrow before they roll into Texas. But once again, that's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm just along for the ride. Sara Dayley here to work things out with him and learning from the best. So thank you for joining us here on the Cardinals Sports Hub STL postgame show. We'll see you once again right back here once the Cardinals take on the Texas Rangers on the next day, not tomorrow, but the day after. And we'll see you then. So thanks for joining us.